The National Championship Preview Show, live from the Indiana Ballroom in the downtown Indianapolis Marriott Hotel, with your host, Eli Gold.
Welcome back, everybody, and a pleasure now to be joined by the head coach of the Alabama Crimson Tide, and Nick Saban. Coach, never tiring of hearing those highlights, man. That was a great performance.
It's great. It was a great win for our team and a great opportunity they created for themselves to be here and on this game.
Yeah. Did you ever imagine back when you were recruiting these two that they'd be sitting up here as broadcasters on the network, man? You got two great players, but as it turns out, you recruited a couple of fine broadcasters too.
Well, I didn't know if they'd be broadcasters, but I knew they'd be successful at whatever they chose to do. These guys are really high character quality people. They were that way when they were players, and some of the lessons I think they learned in their competitive life, they've carried over into their professional life, and I think that's something that's benefited me through the years as well. So I certainly am proud of what they do and how they do it, and they're first class.
Let's open up like we did last week and talk about the week of practice, be it in Tuscaloosa or today here in Indianapolis. How's the week been?
It's been good. We had a couple days off, and the players have tried to get refocused, and we practiced here today in the stadium. We'll have to walk through tomorrow at the Indianapolis Colts facility. But the players have been good. It's a challenge to get ready for a game like this because you worry a little bit about what's the other team going to do that's different, from what you saw in the past. And that's always a little bit challenging. You don't want to defend ghosts, and you don't want your players to be worried about a lot of things that they shouldn't be worried about. But I've been pleased with the way we prepared. I think in games like this, you play against yourself as much as you do against the other team in terms of, being able to sustain the things that helped you be successful to this point in terms of, how you play with consistency. And regardless of what anybody says about any of the things surrounding the game, it's still going to be about what you do when you get in the game. Do what you know, and do it the way you can do it.
Before the guys join the conversation, let's bring you in on something we were talking about earlier, since both of these men have been in the NFL, as were you. Habitually, just in a general broad brush basis, when you're playing a division rival, as you did in the NFL twice, were there significant differences in the second game, whether it's the outcome, whether it was the overall approach, versus the first game?
Well, I got a little different theory on that.
Nothing wrong with that.
when I was in Cleveland, I'll tell you this story. My last year, I think we were 11-5 or 12-5 or something like that. I think we beat both teams in our division, which was Houston and Cincinnati.
Right.
And Pittsburgh was in our division. And we lost to Pittsburgh twice in the regular season, and we lost to them in the playoffs. So, all that stuff about, sometimes I think, players sometimes think they can win a game. They can beat a certain team, whether it's the matchups or whatever. And then other times, teams think, it's going to be very difficult, to beat a certain team. So it can go both ways, but I don't think anything that happened in the last game is going to help us in this game. And, revenge is obviously a kind of a normal motivating factor, but I think 5 minutes into the game, the players are all going to be thinking about what they need to do on the next play, not going to be worried a lot about that.
Exactly. John Parker, jump on in with the coach.
So, Coach, as we're preparing for this game, we played Georgia just over a month ago. How much can you change? How much can Georgia change from what their DNA is from in the SEC championship to now? We've seen them in the first playoff game into this game. How much can honestly change?
Well, I don't know that you can change a lot. I think sometimes you think you need to change, and then I think sometimes when you change, the players don't have confidence in, what you change to. And therefore, they're not as confident in executing it. They don't understand it. They can't adjust it, and you can't practice against all the things that you might see in that particular circumstance. I think in football, it's not maybe something different. It may be a different presentation. In terms of formation, personnel group, whatever that you might do that, makes a player do something different than what he's used to doing. When we used to play the 49ers all the time, when Bill Walsh was there, when I was in the NFL, I would show the players their patterns, their patterns.
Sure.
Snag 7 flat. Nobody knows what that is, but it's a guy running a flat, guy running a 7, and a guy running underneath. All right, so I said, we're going to practice these patterns. But I promise you, everybody has to understand, but they're going to do some kind of formation where the same guys that we're practicing against this pattern are not going to match up with this pattern because they're going to do a formation that's going to make somebody else do it. Mm-hmm. All right, so it was the same pattern. It was the same read for Steve Young, who were playing quarterback, but it was different for us, on defense.
Sure.
So I think that's the kind of thing that you tweak, not necessarily doing things that are crazy different, but maybe it's just different presentation.
Gotcha.
Really good, Coach. And for Georgia, they do a really good job with Brock Bowers in doing that. They have him in the line, out of the line. Can you speak to that and how difficult that is to cover from a defensive standpoint?
Well, I think the more sort of mismatched players you have on offense, which he's certainly a mismatched player because he's got wide receiver skills, speed of a wide receiver, size of a tight end. So he becomes a matchup problem. Smaller guys have trouble with bigger guys. It's like a power forward in basketball getting guarded by a guard. As soon as they bring the ball past half court, they're going to throw the guy the ball so he can take it to the basket. And then you put a bigger guy on him, he's not quite as athletic as you need to be. So he's a matchup problem. Number 4 is a matchup problem for them. And they do a really good job of utilizing both those guys and trying to get them in situations where they get them on a player that's an advantageous situation for them, and they try to take advantage of it.
James Cook is number 4, had a career high against Michigan in the semifinal game. He's a good one.
No, he's really good. And, he's a running back, but they use him in empty. They motion him. They move him around. So, it's kind of you can get in a situation where if you have the wrong guy on them, they know how to take advantage of it.
Yeah. Well, one thing I know is the same, regardless of where we are and what's going on. Our first caller of the night, brought to you by Alabama 811. Always contact 811 before you dig to know what's below. Call 811 or visit al811.com. Pee Wee is with us on the phone from Grand Bay, Alabama. Hello, Pee Wee. Good evening.
Good evening, Eli. Coach, how are you, sir?
I'm doing well, Pee Wee. How are you?
I'm doing good. Coach, last week we had a couple of offensive linemen had to leave the game. One thing I was checking about is how is the health of our offensive line going into this game, and how important it is going to be. Is there a certain number of yards on first down that you would like to see us average going into this game so we can keep the chains moving?
25, 30, 35, 40.
Well, Pee Wee, since you are our sort of surrogate offensive line coach, and every question is about the offensive line, I was fixing to ask you how you felt these guys would be able to play in the game. These guys that got hurt, and then I was going to ask you how many yards per play should we get on first down. So, but you being the offensive line coach, you should be able to answer that even better than me, I would think. But those guys have been able to practice, and I think hopefully we'll be able to play. I think it's very, very important in this game. I don't know that there's some number of yards. These guys try to create a lot of negative plays on defense by how aggressive they are and how they stunt. And I think how you play up front against them is really critical. Sometimes a 2-yard gain is a good play. Sometimes you have an opportunity to make a big play because you catch them in something and you're in the right call, and you do a good job up front of picking it up, and that gives people a chance to, do something in the back end and the secondary to take advantage of, some of our skilled players and our quarterback's ability to get them the ball. So I don't know that there is a right number. I think what you really want is not to get negative plays. Don't get behind in the sticks, because when you get behind in the sticks, that's when you're going to get more pressure. That's when you're going to get more multiples of things that are more difficult to block up front. So if you can create balance and have balance in the running game, balance in the passing game, quick passes, passes down the field, multiple of things to do to try to, create problems for them as well, so that they have to adjust to some things, and maybe we get some matchups that we want.
Pee Wee, thank you so much. And folks, if you want to call in, 877-202-BAMA, 877-202-BAMA. I wouldn't mind seeing B-Rob go off for another 7.8 yards per carry. That was quite the performance, wasn't it?
Well, but, it's defensive structure a little bit, too. I think people, look at me and say, well, you went back to old-fashioned ball. No, we didn't go back to old-fashioned ball. It was the defensive structure that these teams play, like Ole Miss plays a 3-3 stack. These guys play a 3-3 stack. There's bubbles in the defense, so they have guys in windows where you want to throw RPOs. So, you end up handing the ball off.
Yeah.
A lot of those carries that he had, there was RPOs, there were passes built in, but it's a handoff read because of the structure of the defense, and you end up running the ball a lot more. So that's not the kind of defense we're going to see, Monday night.
Yeah.
These guys, are very, very athletic up front. They've got great size. They can play split safety coverage and still stop the run. I think the most important thing is you got to get a hat on a hat and you got to finish blocks. Because when they get off, then you're going to have those 1 and 2 yard plays. But if you can finish, then you got a chance to have the runner have a chance to get in the next level.
Yeah. Folks, remember there's a microphone set up right over there next to that TV monitor. So if you have a question, feel free to make your way over and join the conversation. JP?
Coach, as we're watching Georgia's offense, they throw the ball to a lot of different guys. I think 11 different receivers or running backs, tight end, caught it against us. I think it was 9 against Michigan. How do you go into a game and knowing that they got, like you said, a lot of different looks, a lot of different motions and shifts where, not only they try to be balanced also running the ball, but throwing it to a lot of different people.
Right. Well, but I think that they do a really good job on offense. Their offensive coordinator is an NFL guy, so it's kind of a pro style, lots of formations, but, not necessarily different pattern concepts, but just different people in different formations doing them. And they utilize big people a lot, and they spread those big people out. So they use 3 tight ends, 1 receiver, and a back. Then they use 2 tight ends, 2 receivers in the back. But how do you count 19?
Right.
Is he a tight end or is he a receiver?
Yeah.
And then they have 3 wideouts in 19 in the game, or 3 wideouts in one of the other tight ends. So all these different personnel groups, I think they want to spread the ball out. But it's not like they're running different plays. It's just different matchups that are created, like we talked about before.
Yeah, and folks, obviously number 19 is Brock Bowers, of whom we've been speaking. Coach, we have a visitor right up there at the microphone, almost directly in front of you. Good evening, ma'am.
Hi, how are you?
Good.
I'm Karen from Tuscaloosa. And Coach Saban, I first want to say that win, lose, or draw, I'm a Bama fan through and through and have been all season, even when we've gotten, not playing so good. And I just want you and the players to know that I always support the Tide. And I get chastised for that a lot through looking through my crimson glasses. But
That's okay. That's a good thing.
Well, I do get accused of that, and I'm a positive person, and I just think that I think we can win. I don't know if we will, but we'll see. But my question is, when it comes to playing a national championship game, what are your favorite things about a national championship game versus another game? Or is it because it is the process and it's just the next game? Is it different? Or, how do you motivate the players differently for this game versus other games?
Well, I think that, every game that you play, you're trying to get the best performance from your team. So you're trying to motivate every individual to be the best version of himself, personally, academically, and athletically in everything he does. But in every game that he plays, that's a test. You've heard me talk about consequences. Sometimes we do things in our life and we don't have to face any consequences. There's never a reckoning, for what we do. But when you're an athlete and you play sports, you always have a game. All right, so the game is a reckoning of accumulation of habits that you've created, things that you've done, how you prepared yourself physically, how you prepared yourself mentally, what kind of ability do you have to sustain and focus, and what kind of resiliency do you have to grind it out, in the game. So there's a lot of factors that come into how do you maintain the kind of intensity you need to play at your best level. Well, we're always trying to get that. We're always seeking that. So even though you're playing in a national championship game and the consequences of the outcome of the game are greater, you still have to have the players focus on what they need to do to be able to execute and go out there in the game and play with consistency and performance. Everybody's going to be motivated. You shouldn't need to be motivated when you play in a game like this, but what you need to be is have the ability to keep the main thing the main thing. You hear me say that all the time. What is the main thing? How do I play on this play? How do I focus? What steps do I have to take to block the guy I have to block? What steps do I have to take to cover the guy I have to cover? Everybody play their gap, be disciplined, so that you can execute together as a team. I think that doesn't change in any game that you play. Obviously, when you play really good players, and Georgia has really good players, then you doing things correctly even takes, sort of a greater sense of importance to be able to do it well against a very good opponent. And you're not going to be able to do it play in and play out maybe like you did against a lesser opponent. So your ability to have resiliency in being able to compete, knowing that it's going to be hard. But there can be no great victories in life unless there's tremendous adversity. So you got to be able to overcome adversity. One thing that I've learned from this team, and this team has been criticized. People even buried this team at times when we didn't play well. We lost a close game. We won a couple close games. We came back in games. But that tells me something about the team from a character standpoint in terms of their resiliency and how they've been able to. And we, a lot of our other teams, they kind of won going away. So they never really had to do the things this team did. So this team is, I think Will Anderson said it probably best a few weeks ago. They don't fight like we fight. So you may be a fan and you want to win the game, and some fans aren't good fans when you don't win, but you do have to respect what the players have done to get to this point. You have to respect the fight and the competitive character that they've shown to come back in games to have the opportunity to do this. So I'm really proud of them for that. I learned a lot from this team because of that. And, hopefully I want to do everything that we can do. You should want to as fans. Not to think of it from my perspective or your perspective as fans, but how about the players' perspective? How about supporting the players in a way for all that they've done, all the work that they've done, so that they have the best opportunity to have a chance to win in a game? So it's how you cheer for them, how you support, how you stay there the whole game and show your appreciation for what they've done. So that's something that I've learned from this team, and I certainly appreciate.
Definitely so. Thank you for your question, man. We're going to break away and take care of a little business right here. Our visit with the coach being presented by New Coke Zero Sugar. New look, improved taste. New Coke Zero Sugar. Back in a moment on the National Championship Preview Show. We're live at the Marriott Hotel in Indianapolis on the Crimson Tide Sports Network from Learfield. As we welcome you back to the College Football Playoff National Championship Preview Show presented by Toyota and Cook's Pest Control. Eli Gold, John Parker Wilson, Rashad Johnson, Coach Nick Saban. And Coach, there's a gentleman here just doesn't want to be the center of attention, but I'll tell you, your training staff, absolutely the best in the biz. I don't care who the player is. When they accept a Heisman Trophy, whatever it is, they always talk about Jeff Allen.
Well, I think it's one of the most critical things in any program, especially in football, that you have a medical staff that the players trust. And, to me, this is the ultimate thing that I think Jeff Allen does a great job with our players. Our medical staff is very trusted by our players. They do a great job in not only recognizing what the ailments are, but how we rehab them, how we take care of them, how we get them back to full strength even if they have serious injuries. And the way we've managed and handled some of the guys, whether it was Tua with his really tough injury that now he's playing well in the NFL, and some of the guys that we deal with on a week-to-week basis in terms of the injuries that they have. Jeff does a phenomenal job with them. Our medical staff does a phenomenal job with them. And he's one of the few people that have been here the whole time.
Yeah. Came from Central Florida.
Yeah,
sure
the whole
did.
time.
Jeff, it's great to have you with us here, and we appreciate everything that you do for the program and for the players. Rashad, why don't you jump on in with the coach?
Yeah, definitely appreciate you, Jeff. I want to say that as well as a former player, great trainer. Coach, not to take it away from the national championship, but stay with the program. Last week, you talked about recruiting, how essential it was for yourself and also in the Bear and the success that you've had. Sorry, excuse me. But, Ohio State, Clemson, Georgia, you guys all recruit well, but consistently. Alabama is playing for national championships in the playoffs. Talk about, breeding that type of consistency and the development that it takes, to get your kids to do that year in, year out like you've done. I would love to bring that consistency to my life.
Yeah, well, I think you're doing pretty well.
You're doing all right, yeah.
Well, first of all, you have to be able to recruit character quality people in your organization who want to be the best that they can be. You have a standard in your organization for how you want people to achieve and what you want them to aspire to, but they also have to share that, vision for themselves. It's not just what you want to do, but what are you willing to do to get what you want.
Yeah.
I don't think you can have a successful organization if you don't have quality people. And in sports, you have to have quality players, but they also have to have character and attitude to develop to be the best that they can be. We talk about potential all the time, but if you don't have character, you're probably never going to be able to develop, your full potential, because you'll never have the work, the discipline, the resiliency, ability to overcome adversity, pride in performance, all the things that, help someone be the best that they can be. So I think it's a two-part deal in terms of having physical ability and talent, but also having the right competitive character to do it. And then when you get them in the organization, you want to have a culture in the organization, which we've always tried to promote in a positive way, where we're doing everything we can do to create value for players and getting them to understand what they have to do to create value for themselves personally, academically, and athletically, so that they're going to have a chance to be more successful in life. You hear me talk about this every week. But I bring players in all the time, and I say, okay, I meet with players 2 times a year. And I say, what are your goals? What are your aspirations? What do you want to accomplish, here at the University of Alabama? Very simple. Guy says, well, I want to graduate. I want to get a degree in business, whatever it is, and I want to play in the NFL someday. So once I get that on you or John Parker or anybody, every time your behavior does not match up to the goals and aspirations that you can have, I can bring you in and say, how does that behavior going to help you do these things? So I make it about you in terms of, what you need to do to accomplish the goals that you have, and how you have to edit your behavior and how you have to change so that you have a chance to do those things. And, most guys get it, some guys don't, but you have a culture and a standard, and you have a set of rules that people have to abide by and sort of buy into, understanding that if you do these things, it will help you create value for your future.
That's good.
Good answer.
Rashad, I don't know about you, but those meetings were kind of scary to me, weren't they?
Man.
I mean, we didn't know what you were doing at the time either. It makes perfect sense these days. But I think, Rashad, that was a great question, and kind of piggybacking off that. This team, and you talked about it a second ago, Coach Saban, it's kind of, people have cast them out, and it's been up and down. We lost a game to Texas A&M. But,
we lost a game.
Right, exactly. I wouldn't say I was kind of agreeing with you that, but
You're a little scared in that meeting, huh?
I know, right? Jeff, come on, you want these headphones? But the leadership of this team, though, because it's kind of been up and down, and we've had to fight back, and everything had been perfect. But guys like Will Anderson, I mean, I get pumped up just listening to his post-game press conference. I want to run through a wall just listening to this guy. To me,
right.
It's guys like him, Brian Robinson, what he said. I'm laying on the line for this team, for this university. I mean, you could tell how much it means to these guys, and it's got to affect the younger guys, especially on the team.
Well, and I think that was some of the issue, early in the season for this team to be able to grow and develop is we didn't have a lot of older guys, on the team. You just had a team that had a tremendous amount of success the year before and had older guys who were very good leaders. So even some of the guys that were good leaders who were younger players, like Will Anderson fits into this category, they weren't sort of ready to take that role or think that it was time for them to take that role, only being a sophomore or whatever, even Bryce. So it took a little bit of time and maybe even losing for them to see that I need to do this. It's time for me to do this. And those guys all stepped forward, and I think that that's helped set a good example for what is a really young team and some of the younger players to show the maturity that they needed to show so that they could play and we could play with more consistency in our performance. And I think the leadership has been a real key to the development of this team.
No doubt. When he stands up and says football needs to mean more to you guys, you've got to listen. We've got Kevin on the phone, gentlemen, from Greenfield, Indiana. Hello, Kevin. Welcome to the show.
Hey, Coach. Just wanted to welcome you to Indianapolis and let you know one of the biggest Alabama fans in Indiana is sitting in the back of the room. His name is Brent Lawson. He's been there since about 1:30 waiting on you.
Oh, good. Kevin, that's good to know. I need all these scouting reports that I can get.
In Indianapolis so far, and the facilities and how you're being treated, and will you be going to St. Elmo's for some shrimp cocktail? Oh, by the way, Brent doesn't think you can throw him off the tube on your boat.
Well, I've had many of people say that.
Yeah. As they were drying off. Yeah. Definitely. How do these folks, I mean, they've hosted Super Bowls here, Final Fours. They know how to do a big event.
They've done a great job. We just got here yesterday, but, everything has been, first class and very accommodating. The people are really nice here. I mean, they treat you well. They speak to you. I mean, it's a very at-home atmosphere, I think, for us, our players, and everything's been first class.
By the way, you looked sharp in that bomber jacket getting off the jet yesterday. I liked, and the players have commented they like the look.
Yeah, but let me just say something. Does anybody want to guess? Would anybody like to guess how old that coat is?
Well, the way you're talking, it was probably 20, 30, 40 years old or something.
That jacket, whatever you want to call it, was in style, has been out of style, and is back in style.
Come back again.
So I have a new one. And Terry says, why don't you wear your new one? I said, are you kidding?
Yeah, this one's broken in. It's comfortable. That's Coach Nick Saban. We're coming right back with more as we are live at the Marriott in Indianapolis on the Crimson Tide Sports Network from Learfield. We welcome you back. We are live at the downtown Marriott Hotel, the College Football Playoff National Championship Preview Show. Coach, we're going to go back to the microphone. We've got a young man standing back there, and if we can see him through the spotlights. Good evening, young man. Good to have you with us.
Thank you. I wanted to say, Coach, do you think your team is going to win against Georgia, but that it's going to be a lot closer because Georgia is like a team that doesn't really care that they want an SEC championship where they like to win like a national championship?
I think we all want to win a national championship.
Yeah.
And I think when we were playing for the SEC championship, we all wanted to win that too. So, that's why we play games, though, to see, how we can execute, how they're going to execute, how we can sustain our performance. It's all about how you play. And how you play is a lot about how you prepare to play. You can't make mental errors in the game. I said, you got to kind of know who you are, but you also got to, do what you know, and you got to do it well, and you got to do it over and over and over again. And when you're playing games like this, you're not always going to have success. So even when you don't, you got to be able to, step up and start fast, but you got to finish, and you got to play for 60 minutes in the game. You got to play one play at a time, and I think that's what we've always tried to get our players to do, and it's going to be important that we can do it in this game as well.
Yeah. Thanks for being here. Great question for the coach.
Yeah, I just wanted to say one more thing, too.
Okay.
I wanted to say to you, Nick, I gotta say, you're the king, and of college football, and Kirby Smart's the prince of college football.
I appreciate that. But, Kirby has done a great job at Georgia. They have a great team. He's got a really good program, and they've had consistency in terms of the success that they've had. And he was one of the best assistants we ever had. He was, in our program for like 10 years or whatever.
Yeah,
totally. Total, whether it was LSU, Miami, or here at Alabama, and did a fantastic job. And he's certainly done a really good job there.
He really has. Rashad, why don't you jump on in with the coach?
Yeah, Kirby, going back to that, has done a great job, especially with that defense. I mean, that defense is fast, physical, ferocious. But when you go back and look at the SEC championship game, the offense scored when the defense only rushed 4, stimulated pressures. Do you expect to possibly see more pressures, or that some type of, those ghosts that we may be chasing just from watching film, you said from playing a previous team?
Well, they pressure, and I think, people probably don't know what simulated pressures are. They do a lot of them. We do some of them as well. But a simulated pressure, so that people understand, is somebody rushes who's not supposed to rush, and then somebody drops in coverage who's supposed to be rushing. That's a simulated pressure. So we could bring 4 guys off of this side. One of them might be a DB, and the outside backer or defensive end who's supposed to be rushing on the other side drops out and takes the zone, and you end up playing zone. So, but it also gives you an opportunity to break down the other team's protection or stress their protection a little bit. And, sometimes get a free guy when you're only rushing 4 guys.
Right.
So they do a lot of that. And it also helps you to cut gaps against the run. When you plug people, which they do a lot of, you plug a guy in a gap and somebody wraps around, so you're cutting a gap, so you force the runner to make an abrupt cut, and then everybody can react to it. So they're good concepts. They do a good job of it. I would expect them to, they pressured a lot in the first game.
Mm-hmm.
I would say that they would probably do a lot of the same things, and maybe different pressures, but have the same philosophy of trying to affect the quarterback.
Gotcha.
Speaking of quarterback, I've been really impressed with Bryce this season. Obviously, the Heisman Trophy winner, but it seems like put a lot on his plate, changing a lot of protections, and be able to handle those kind of blitzes that Georgia or whoever's throwing at him, of putting our team in the right play, whether it's a run-pass option or what. But he does a lot at the line of scrimmage to get the offense ready to go.
No, there's no question about that, and I think that our coaches do a really good job of preparing them. But he is very mature beyond his years in terms of how he prepares for a game. He really goes through it and knows almost as much as the coaches do. By the time we get to the game, and his recognition and his instincts of what the other team's doing based on their alignment and the location of the players. I mean, they could show that they're going to blitz from this side, but if the safeties are rolled this way, they can't really cover on this side. So that's just, it's just window dressing. Mm-hmm. So, and, he's smart enough to figure all that out, and that is very helpful to not having bad plays. So, but, everybody's got to do a good job in this. We can redirect and get into the right play, whether it's protection or whatever it is, but the receivers still got to get open. They've got to run good routes, and the offensive line has to do a good job of picking people up and passing people off when they do twist, so that the quarterback has an opportunity to be able to operate and read and throw the ball to the right guy.
Exactly. Let's take another phone call. We've got Jen on the phone in Annapolis, Maryland. Hello, Jen. Welcome in.
Hi. How are you, Coach Stevens?
I'm good. How are you, Miss Jen?
I am good. I just sent my son home, or actually driving down to Alabama today from Annapolis, not Indianapolis. And he is now in Knoxville. Can't wait to get back before the Natty. We hope you win. We know you will do a great job. And the only thing I wanted to tell you is your leadership shows so much when you were complimenting the 2 guys at the desk next to you and the way they looked at you. So I just want you to know that you're an incredible leader, and so many people see it. I'm a teacher, and I look up to you, and I appreciate everything you're doing. I know it's so hard.
Well, I appreciate you saying that. That's worth me doing this show.
Well, we appreciate you, definitely. And And you know, and the way the guys looked at Coach Saban, that's just not because we're up here on a stage in front of a crowd. Hearing them talk about their experiences with the coach as we just sit privately and shoot the breeze, you meant a lot to these guys, as you have to, I bet, darn near everybody you've coached.
Well, I don't know about all that, Eli, but we certainly do want to, you know, be a good leader, set a good example, be somebody that somebody can emulate, you know, care enough about others to serve them, to help them have a better chance to be successful. So, you know, I think that's a big part of it. And I think if you do that, you know, the players know you have their best interest at heart. And I think that helps them buy into doing the things that you'd like for them to do so that they have a chance to be successful.
Exactly. I know your schedule is tight, so we're going to be letting you go early here in just a few moments. So it's now time for your final word of the evening. It's presented each week by Mercedes-Benz. Mercedes-Benz, the best or nothing.
Well, look, I want to thank everybody who has supported the team all year long. I know the players really appreciate it. We've had great fans in all the venues, whether it was, you know, last game in Dallas, SEC championship game, every game we played all season long. And I know that this has been a season where, you know, we've not played always with the kind of consistency and to the standard that, you know, sometimes everybody expects. But I do think that there's characteristics that every team has that need to be appreciated, and I spoke of this before. And I think a lot of the things that this team has been able to do in terms of the way they grew, the way they developed, the resiliency that they showed, you know, they always stepped up no matter what happened, no matter how bad things were, how much they got criticized, they always stepped up and took the challenge, tried to get better, tried to improve, and I have done that on a pretty consistent basis, and that's something I'm really proud of. And more than anything in the world, you know, I'd love for this team, the players on this team, the coaches on this team, to have an opportunity to have success in this game. And you try to do everything that you can do to help them do that. You know, we're going to play against a really good team. But you know, like I said before, there can be no great victories in life unless there's tremendous adversity. So these kinds of challenges are what make great competitors. And I have a lot of respect for the kind of competitive spirit our team has. And I just hope that everybody, you know, can support that and appreciate that in a very positive way. I know the players appreciate you. So
definitely. And, Coach, listen, I know all of the Thursdays that we spend together in the regular season and all of these special postseason talk shows, they have been very special to us. You've been most gracious with your time, and we appreciate that because without you, we don't have anything here, and we thank you so much for your time.
Well, I appreciate that, and I want everybody to know that, you know, if somebody on the school bus when you're in school tells you we're going to fight when we get off the school bus, you're not going to let them get the first punch. So you got to be ready. We all got to be ready to start fast and finish strong and play well for 60 minutes in the game. So that's what we're hoping our players will be ready to do.
Good for that. Coach, take care. Enjoy your evening. Have a
Jump
good
up
week.
out my seat.
And we will see you on Monday. Coach Nick Saban joining us here. We're coming right back as we are live in Indianapolis. More of the College Football Playoff National Championship Preview Show from the Marriott Hotel in downtown Indy on the Crimson Tide Sports Network from Learfield. Welcome back to the College Football Playoff National Championship Preview Show. It's presented by Toyota and Cook's Pest Control. Eli Gold, John Parker Wilson, Rashad Johnson. Coach Saban seemed to be in a pretty good mood tonight.
Yeah, he was in a great mood tonight. Yeah. It seemed like he's feeling good, like his team is prepared and ready to go out and handle business. I definitely felt a lot of confidence from him.
We have heard so much tonight. Why don't we talk about the keys to the victory as you guys see them? Alabama's keys to victory are driven by your local Toyota dealer. Visit your local Toyota dealer or Toyota.com and take advantage of the amazing deals on their full line of vehicles. No matter your destination, Toyota goes with you. Toyota, let's go places. Is it all boil down to the offensive line of Bama against the defensive front of Georgia, which makes everything go for the Tide?
I think especially on offense. Look, we the last time we played these guys, the week before we gave up 7 sacks against Auburn and then came out against the #1 defense statistically and kept Bryce clean all night. And that was the difference. Had the SEC record for, I think it was 421 yards passing in that game. And it was really the guys up front of giving him time, keeping him clean, keeping him upright, and letting him do his thing. We had a couple injuries last week against Cincinnati that we'll see how that shakes out on Monday against Georgia. But those guys were able to really pick up. He talked a lot about blitzes and the different things that they do, but passing things off, the stunts in the games that the defensive line does up front. The offensive line handled it, and that led to a big night for our offense.
Yeah, huge night. And defensively, I think, going against that offense, got to make them one-dimensional initially because they're well-balanced in how they run the ball with James Cook and then attack you in the pass with Brock Bowers. But once you make them one-dimensional, can't give up any big plays because we know that Brock Bowers has the potential to change a game the way he did late in that second half of that SEC championship. And I think, lastly, we got to create some turnovers. If we can create some turnovers, that gives our offense more opportunities against that great defense if they lack sometimes and don't get an opportunity to get points. So creating turnovers, I think, is going to be a big one in this game.
And, we talk so much about the tight ends, even going back, Evan Ingram when he played for Ole Miss Rebels, Gerald Sprinkle for Arkansas, and even in the National Football League. I mean, Gronk and Kelsey and all. It's just a tough position to cover. Those guys can get lost in the traffic, and they've got great hands and great size. That's again, I'm sure, there's probably a show being done right now going back to Athens, Georgia, where they're saying just feed the ball to Bowers.
No doubt. And it's because they're tweeners. They're not really receivers. They're not really offensive linemen. So that gives them like this special skill set that makes it hard for others to cover. Kind of like an outside linebacker that can rush the passer but also drop in the flats. Like he's a tweener, makes it really hard for a left tackle. So, I mean, with our guys, I think, disrupting him early in the game, hitting him off the line, not giving him free releases, that's going to disrupt the timing with the quarterback. And now it takes away, that special athletic talent that he has if the timing is thrown off. So that would be one way that, I would try and attack him. Every time he released, if it's a run or a pass, I'm having someone hitting that guy. He's not releasing free on Monday night.
I know plays are called, obviously, John Parker, but if you're a Tom Brady, if you're a quarterback, is he automatically the first thing you look at is whether Gronkowski is free? I mean, do you check that big target first?
Well, you've got certain plays, so they'll have packages for him that's going to feature him on this route. We're trying to get the ball to Bowers, just like we'll try to get the ball to Jamison Williams or whoever it is. They're plays that are designed to go to that player. And obviously Georgia's going to have plenty of those for Brock Bowers, whether it's first and second down, third down in the red zone, down towards the goal line. They're going to have plays where they're going to try to get their best player the ball. But a quarterback, you can only go where the defense lets you go. If we've got Christian Harris and Brian Branch double teaming them, that means you probably need to go somewhere else with the ball that's going to be one-on-one coverage. Now, there's certain situations and times and a moments in the game where you might just try to force it. Where, hey, my guy's so good that we're gonna. Doesn't matter if you put 2, 3, or 4 guys on him. We're gonna get in the ball because we believe he can get open.
And that's when Bennett gets intercepted.
That's what happened. And
no doubt.
The problem though is we threw a lot at him last time where there was Christian Harris covered him that is athletic enough to go downfield, or Brian Branch or even bringing in a bigger cornerback. But I think that changes throughout the game because, like Coach Saban said, do you count them as a tight end? So is it 12 personnel with one running back, 2 tight ends, or is it 11 personnel where you count them as a wide receiver? So that's going to change whether we go nickel or dime against them or run base people. So it's just it's part of the game plan. It's part of the in-game adjustments, the chess match that go on in a big game like this.
Well, that's what makes this game so intriguing. Not just Alabama, Georgia, but the game of football, man. There are so many options. Listen, you guys have a great time, what remains tonight, and tomorrow we will see you on Monday at Lucas Oil Stadium, which is just a block or so away from here. It's another great opportunity for the Tide to pick up national title number 19.
It really is. I mean, and this is it's so exciting as a fan,
it
right?
Really
of
is.
Being here, of getting to go to the SEC game in Atlanta, of getting to go to Dallas and run away with that one, and now have a chance to do this again. It really doesn't get old, and I know as an Alabama fan and watching it, up in the press box like we do, time and time again, it's just this is fun. I mean, not everybody gets to do this, right?
Yeah.
They really don't.
Yeah, it's like you said, it's fun. It's a special moment. And for me, I think just for this team, I mean, it's special for them. If you look back at last year, we thought that COVID year was something special. But these guys, the adversity that they've had to battle, we lost, 8 players, in the top 40 in the draft last year. That's a lot of holes to fill.
Sure.
So just to think what we thought coming into this, just making it to the playoffs was going to be good enough or was going to be, above season. But these guys are here with an opportunity to stamp, their name in history. So I'm really excited against, a Georgia team and a Georgia fan base that feels that this is their chance. But we all know we're not playing a lotto. So
Exactly.
yeah, we got to play some football.
Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us.